Yes, welcome to day two of the 30 days IELTS course for busy professionals. And today we'll be dealing with understanding the exam model. What is IELTS all about? What are the tasks you're supposed to be doing? What do they look like? And this is very important because it helps you to be familiar with the test. And when you are familiar with the test in terms of what the task involves, what is required in each section, it helps you to prepare better. It helps you to learn during your preparation how to manage your time. It also helps you in terms of coming up with strategic approaches to different questions. So you will notice that for most times when you're doing listening or reading, then people begin to talk about strategies for each question type. The only reason why they can come up with strategies for each question type is because they know the question type that comes out in IELTS. So you can see the benefits of being familiar with your exam model in terms of when you have an idea and when you have a thorough understanding of what each section is all about, the question types that are there, it takes your preparation to a whole new level. All right. And it also helps you in terms of setting realistic goals in terms of okay, for example, that writing has tax one and tax two. And I'm not so good in writing. Oh, I'll need more time to prepare. It helps you to set realistic goals in terms of okay, in my preparation, oh, I'll need an extra 1 week or an extra 2 weeks to, you know, to improve on my writing or to improve on my reading skills. It helps you set realistic goals, and also it helps you to prepare in such a way that you are used to the test conditions already. So it's not something that catches you unaware in the exam. So you don't want to enter into the exam online. You're like, I didn't know listening lasts for 30 minutes, so I didn't know I was supposed to write within 1 hour. All right. So as you understand the model, it makes you, because it's a standard format, it does not deviate. If at all it's deviating, like like they'll release a news or something to let everybody know, especially the examiners know that okay, something is being changed, something is being updated about our format or about our curriculum and all of that. So you want to make sure that you understand the model in terms of okay, I know what to expect. And when you have prepared, taking all these things in mind, it then makes it better and makes it easier for you to perform better. All right, because when you know what it entails, it now makes it easier. Your preparation now is in view of what you understand of the model. And then, of course, when you prepare effectively and when you prepare very well, it makes your performance so much better. Of course, your performance will be as a result of how much preparation that you have put in. So a summary of this is what I just put on this slide in terms of understanding the format, understanding the model of the exam makes you familiar with it, which affects your preparation, helps you manage your time better, helps you arrive at strategic approaches to different question types and different sections as well. It helps you set realistic goals in your preparation, and it helps you adapt to the test conditions. So during that exam, during your test, it makes you confident in terms of oh, I know what to expect. I have gone through this. I've done this in my preparation. I've made preparation towards this. It's a different thing when somebody is taking the exam from a place of anxiety or a place of nervousness. And of course, it gives you a better result. So let's go right into it. So it is expected that at the end of today, you should understand the exam format. You should have an idea of the tasks you'll be asked to perform. And also, you should be able to test yourself under the time conditions for each of the sections. Okay, so let's move right into it. So the IELTS module is generally two types. You have the general training, and you also have the academic module. The general training is for those who are considering immigration to another country. Probably you want to use it for your permanent residence application and things like that. And then academic, as the name implies, for school admissions, or probably you want to a professional exam in terms of, okay, you want to change your certification from your country to an English speaking country, maybe like from Nigeria to UK, or from Nigeria to Canada, Australia, etc. So that's the major difference, and the two cannot be used interchangeably. They serve two different purposes, so you can't use them interchangeably. So if you want to go to school, academic module is the best for you. And then if you are considering immigration, probably doing your PR process, general is the model you should write. So those are the two key differences between them. And you find out that for listening and speaking, it's the same across each of these module. But when it comes to the reading and writing section, it is different. Okay, so that's the difference between the two modules. Listening and speaking is same, but when it comes to reading and writing, they are quite different. So each of these modules have the same components. We have listening, reading, writing, and speaking. So what does that look like? This is just a brief overview. The duration for listening is 30 minutes, and within that 30 minutes, you have four sections under which you have 40 questions. Okay, and then for reading, you have 60 minutes, that's an hour. You have sections in all, but under those three sections, you have 40 questions in overall. So you're expected to attempt and answer these 40 questions in 1 hour when it comes to reading. And then when it comes to writing, you have 1 hour as well, 60 minutes to attempt two tasks. And of course, when we go into the nitty gritty of each test component, we then begin to talk about what this task looks like. Okay. And then we have speaking. Speaking is the shortest, and you have it for 11 to 40 minutes, and it's usually a one-on-one conversation with an examiner. All right, so like I said, listening is common to both the general and academic. It's the same. So what does the listening part look like? Okay, so like we saw in the overview, it's 30 minutes, and for those who are doing the paper test, you have 10 minutes extra time to transfer your answer to the answer sheet. They usually give that, okay? And then you have 40 questions. Each question is worth 1 mark. There's no negative marking in IELTS. So you want to try your best to attempt all questions. Even if you don't know the answer, just try and answer. There's no, you never can tell if your guesswork will be correct. All right, so what type of question do you usually see when it comes to listening? So we have things like multi choice, we have things like matching information, we have things like plan, map, diagram, label, where they give you a map and then you're supposed to find certain places on the map. And then we have completion questions, whether it be form, note, table, flowchart, summary, sentence. Another word or another phrase for completion question is fill in the gap. Now, the fill in the gap might now come in different forms. Either you're filling in the gap of a sentence, or you're filling the gap of summary. Summary is usually when you're summarizing a conversation or something, or a table in a table format. All right. And usually, when you're answering the listening, is expected that you write your answers initially for those doing paper, mind you, on the question paper. Then at the end of the test, they'll give you 10 minutes to transfer your answer to your answer sheet. But for those doing the computer based test, that's CBT, you are to answer directly as you listen. So you type, you're not giving any extra minutes to transfer anything. You type as you listen. And it's usually advised that students watch out for your spelling, your grammar during this point. All right, because every wrong spelling, every wrong grammar will be penalized, will cost you your mark. All right, so that is it about listening. And so let's look at the band scores. And this is helpful when it comes to our preparation, when it comes to us practicing. It gives you an idea of how well you are doing, how much you need to improve. So if you see yourself getting 16 over 40, that's a band 5. If you see yourself getting a 23 over 40, that's a band 6. If you see yourself getting 30 over 40, that's a band 7. And if you see yourself getting a 35 over 40, that's a band 8. So this just gives you an idea of where am I at? What do I need to improve? Depending on your goals or depending on the required, on the required score. So this gives you an idea of, okay, what scores must I get to get my desired band? All right, so let's go right into reading, and we'll be starting with the academic. Okay, academic reading or general reading, the duration is 60 minutes. You have 40 questions, no negative marking, so and no question is more important than the other. They are all worth 1 mark. All right, and then we have different types of questions. We have multi choice, identifying information, identifying the writer's claim, matching information, matching headings, matching futures, matching sentence headings. It's just good to be familiar with these question types because, as you have seen from our syllabus and the curriculum that is set, we have strategy, we have strategic approaches to each question type. So it's just very, very helpful if you have an idea of what question type it is so that you know what approach to give to it. But never mind, as we get along, of course, we will be practicing with the official practice questions. So you don't have to be scared of, I don't understand these question types. You will see it later on as we go along in the course. And of course, when you're answering, like listening, if you're doing the paper test and you have extra time to transfer your answer to the answer sheet, you don't have that luxury when it comes to academic reading. Answer or general reading generally, answer, you just have that 60 minutes, no transfer time. So you need to answer directly into your answer sheet during that time that is allocated for the test. Again, write carefully. Poor spelling, poor grammar. Now when it comes to reading, I usually tell my students, write what you see, because your answers are usually supposed to be picked from the passage. All right. And for academic reading, this is also, the required score to get your band. So this also tells you the level where you are. So from this, you should be able to know, oh, I'm around the band 6. Oh, I'm working towards the band 8. So this gives you an idea of where you are and what you need to get your dream score. All right, so let's move right into the general reading. Okay, so like I said, it's still 60 minutes, 40 questions, same types of question types as well. It's just that now their essays are different. The passages that you need to read are quite different in nature. For the academic, you begin to see more of, research papers, research topic, unlike the general reading where you begin to see social context, everyday social context, kind of things that are easily relatable. We're talking about work, day-to-day life, basically. All right, there are things that the average man who is used to communicating in English will be able to, read. I think only for section 3, that's where they begin to introduce a somewhat academic text, but not as complex as the academic reading passages. And like I said, no extra time to transfer. Make sure that you are writing your answers on the answer sheet during that 1 hour, because once it's over, your question paper will be collected, your answer sheet will be collected as well. And of course, watch out for your grammar, watch out for your spelling. So when it comes to the general reading, the stakes are higher. So you require more scores to get the same band that you require. So, for example, when we're looking at the academic reading, for example, a 23 over 40 would have given you a band 6. But when it comes to general reading, 23 over 40 will give you a band 5. So you need more correct answers to get the same band. 35 over 40 in academic would have given you a band 8, but in general, you need a 38 over 40 to get a band 8. So this is to tell you how much work you have to do, how much improvement, how much practice, how much effort you need to put in to get that I band that you want. So let's go into writing. We'll talk about the academic first, and then we'll go into the general writing. So like we saw in the previous slide, writing is divided into two tasks. So in academic writing, your task one is usually you'll be presented with either a graph, a table, a chart, or a diagram, and then you'll be asked to describe, summarize, explain the information in your own words. All right, this sometimes involves describing or explaining data. So they give you a graph, and then you are just supposed to talk about the trends on the data. You're supposed to give specific details. Sometimes you're supposed to compare data and all of that. And sometimes it's a process diagram, and you're required to describe the stages of the process or how something works, describing an object or an event. And sometimes it might be a place before and after, or a place after 20 years. Those are things that you see in your tax one. And then, so for your tax one, in terms of duration, you have 60 minutes in all, but you are usually advised to spend approximately 20 minutes on your tax one and then 40 minutes on your tax two. You will need to manage your time because they don't usually come and tell you, oh, 20 minutes is up. You just have to be mindful of it. So, in terms of time management, we'll go into that when we get to writing anyway. And so for your task two, you'll be asked to write an essay. An essay, sometimes most times you're talking about, they might ask you about your point of view. Sometimes they give you two contrasting views and they ask you, okay, discuss this view. Why is this that? Why is this that? It takes me back to secondary school, the way we used to debate, a teacher is better than a doctor. Are you for or against? So you see things like that in your tax too. All right. In terms of sometimes you are asked to develop an argument, and that's what I mean by you have to contrast view and then you're asked to develop it. Or sometimes they give you a problem and then they ask you, okay, what are the causes of the problems? What's the solution to the problem? And all of that. They are usually issues that are quite interesting. All right. And for academic writing, it is better for you to bear in mind for those writing academic that you have to write in a formal style. All right. Your language must be formal, your tone must be formal. All right. And like I said, they're usually two questions, two tasks, and that's what they look like. And then the task type, like I said, you spend 20 minutes on task one, and you're writing lesser words. You're writing at least 150 words. Anything less than that, you'll be penalized, will affect your score. And then for task two, you're supposed to write at least 250 words. All right. And then of course, how do you gain your marks? Your test will be marked by certified IELTS examiner, and of course they mark according to a certain criteria which we'll look into shortly when we come to the writing section. And of course, just bear in mind your tax 2 is more important than your tax 1, but putting effort into both essays That way you never can tell which way up the other. All right, so that is all about writing. So let's move to general writing. So general writing for tax one is quite different from academic writing, where you are given a diagram and then you're asked to describe, explain data, and all of that. In tax one, usually you are asked to write a letter. Now, that letter might be informal or formal, depending on who you're writing to. And of course, this letter is usually asking an information or giving an information or explaining a situation. All right, so you need to know what type of letter it is so that your tone matches the type of letter that you'll be asked to write. And the task two is almost the same with that of the academic, where you're supposed to write an essay, either to give your own point of view, develop an argument, or give solution to a particular problem. But when it comes to general writing, it's okay to be personal. It's okay to write in an informal way as opposed to academic writing. Okay, but the rules are the same. Spend 20 minutes on tax one, spend 40 minutes on tax two, tax one at least 150 words, tax two at least 250 words, and all of that. So it's still the same, it's just that the essays now are different. Tax one, letters for general, and then tax two, they're almost the same. It's just that the tone of writing now might be different. For general, you're allowed to be personal, you're allowed to, yeah, to use informal words, unlike when it comes to academic writing and you have to be formal in nature. Just think about it like you're writing to a teacher, a professor, a lecturer, or something. All right, so that's all about writing. And so let's go to speaking. Okay, so speaking now, you have, like we saw in the overview, you have a three parts one on one conversation. All right, so the part one, so let's talk about the parts. What does it look like? The part one is usually like an introduction, the examiner trying to get to know you. Usually asks probably a general question on familiar topics, things that you are like things that you are very familiar with, probably your home, your family, your hobbies, your studies, it's just to get you into the exam, just an introductory phase. And I usually tell students this is the time to work on being relaxed, and just bear in mind that although you are tested, it's just a conversation. Yes. And so part two is where you'll be asked to, they'll give you a card or they'll give you a paper that has a particular topic, and of course they will also tell you things that they want you to talk about, and then they'll give you 1 minute to think about it, to prepare, to make your notes, and then you then be asked to talk without anybody interrupting you. Of course, you're supposed to talk about the topic, including all the points that they've included. And so the best thing, the advice for this part that I can tell you for sure right now is just keep on talking until you are stopped. All right. And then the last part, which is part three, is where your examiner asks you like further questions that are connected to part two. So I usually call it part three is like an offshoot of part two. All right, the questions they ask. So now you begin to have like one on one. Yeah, so it's an offshoot of part two. So these questions usually are to, it's just to give you an opportunity to showcase your ability to communicate on the go, because now you're not given any time to think about anything. Your examiner is asking a question back and forth. So it's just your ability to be able to communicate on abstract ideas or abstract issues. So that's really about it when it comes to speaking. I would attach to this recording like an overview to show you like what an exam sheet really looks like, what the question looks like, and all of that, so that we have an idea of what our exam looks like before we now get to the sections proper. All right. And so I also included here websites that you can use for practice, especially for those doing the computer test. These are free websites that you can practice in, yeah, in combination with practice questions that we'll be providing in this course. So enjoy, I hope. So let's go back to our goals, what we aim. So I hope from what we've said so far, you are able to understand the exam format. You have an idea of the tasks you'll be asked to perform, and also you know the time conditions for each test. So let me ask like three questions. Let me ask for each section. Okay. Okay, so which of the sections do do you do for 1 hour? That's the first question. So answer as you are listening to this. And then secondly, which of the sections are different for when it comes to general and academic model? Okay. And then the last, okay, I said four questions. So the third one as well is which of the sections has two tags, right? And then the last but not the least, which of the sections require one-on-one with an examiner? All right, so let me just give you some time to think about it, though you're supposed to have answered spontaneously. So yeah, so these are the answers. So number one question, I said which of the questions do you do for 1 hour? So the answer to that is reading and writing. Okay. Then the second question, which of the sections are different for general and academic modules? Same answer, reading and writing. Which of the question has two tags, that's writing, and then which of the questions require one-on-one with an examiner, and that is speaking. All right, so if you're able to answer that correctly, that means you at least have an idea of, you've been able to get something from today's model. So let's go straight ahead to seeing what a question paper looks like. Bye. See you then.